What are you doing in my kitchen? A little early for this, isn't it? Nah, glad you're here anyway. Let me walk you through what we're doing today. It'll be an interesting topic. We're going to go down the Springsteen rabbit hole that anytime there's a Springsteen rabbit hole, you go down and you talk about songs and the best of, it's always sure to have some people agreeing with you, disagreeing with you, and even something in between, which is sometimes even worse or better. I'm going to call this my Springsteen top 20, even though it is not a top 20 exactly. There's a couple of other things I'm going to throw in here. You'll see why I mean that later on. It's really the songs that have grown with me over the years as I've kind of grown up. I wouldn't say I've grown up. I'm still immature at times, like a lot of us. But, as we get older and these songs that maybe had zero meaning when we first heard them, all of a sudden take on a meaning or take on a completely different meaning, right? So that's what I want to go over today. I'll walk you through, and there's no real chronological reason I'm doing this. I could do it from first album to most recent. Number one, I've given this a lot of thought. I'm not going to go through every album. And I'm going to start off with the album and the song that really kind of got me started on this. But we'll do it in the other room where I can sit down and be a little more comfortable, not in my kitchen. But we'll take a listen to this. I think it'll be interesting. We'll bounce around a little bit, but I could tell you right now what's not on this list if you're curious. And if you want to bow out at this point, that's fine. It's not going to be the ones you're thinking. Thunder Road is not going to be discussed. Born to Run, Rosalita, Darkness on the Edge of Town, Promised Land, Prove It. These aren't on. Don't get me wrong. These are great songs, and to hear them live, as many times I've heard them live, it's fantastic. They're not on this list. These aren't the ones that really kind of shaped why I really like the Springsteen catalog, or the ones that have stayed with me, or the ones that I feel like sometimes I'm even part of the song as a character in the way he's writing. There's some other ones, and they're, to me, they're big ones, and we'll see what you think as well, because I would love your opinion as we go through this. But let me finish this up here, and we'll head over to the studio and we'll get going. All right. All right, so let's just kind of get right into this. Top 20, Springsteen top 20, but it's not the all-time greatest top 20. Again, we're talking about the songs that really had the most impact on me from day one till today, basically. And again, I'll say this again, you're not going to see the standard ones in here. Born to Run, Thunder Road, all that, not going to be in here. Great songs, but there were other ones along the way that, to me, just have shaped, my appreciation for Bruce Springsteen's catalog more than those. I'm not saying they haven't been great songs, great to see live. There are other ones that I put above that. So this is a top 20-ish, and ish we'll get into later, of the songs that have kind of been there for me and continue to be there for me, and an appreciation of just how you look at things differently from a song that you first heard 20, 30, maybe 40 years ago. So we'll get into this. We're not going to go chronologically for the most part. We're going to kind of touch upon these as I feel they've kind of left their mark on me. I'm sure some of these aren't going to be super popular with some folks, especially the diehards, because you get into the commercial, super commercial side of things, like this first one we're going to go into. But these are the ones that, for me, kind of made this list happen. So for the first one, we're going right to this album here. I know it's, the diehards, Born in the USA. And not only are we going to this album, we're going to the song Born in the USA. This was really my first introduction to Springsteen that I remember. I knew there was Hungry Heart out there prior to this. That was 82. I was born in 73. So I do remember hearing it. But for me, it was Born in the USA. It was the video on MTV. To this day, when I hear that intro, again, it takes me somewhere far away, if that makes sense. It just takes me to hearing it for the first time. The intro itself is probably the most important part of that song to me, because that's the part of it that I truly remember. It wasn't the video with Courtney Cox dancing. It was just that intro. So whenever I hear that, it's one of those special moments. Now, again, why, you might be wondering, well, why do people not like that or be upset? This is when Springsteen really went commercial, and I think a lot of folks were upset that this song or the song or the album. I forget which one it was. It might have even been Dancing in the Dark. Something related. Only got to number 2. Um, they kind of like their Springsteen back from the 70s, early 80s, where maybe he still wasn't as popular. It was their little secret, and this is kind of what got the secret out, I guess. So for me, that would be the song that kind of kicks all of this off. So that'd be my number 1. Not number 1 favorite best, but that was the one that got it started for me, was Born in the USA. And I'll be checking some things over here because I don't want to screw this video up, which I tend to do sometimes if you know me. So let's keep moving along here. All right. We are going to take a big leap here. We're going to go to this album right now, which with Born in the USA is kind of where it started for me. I'm not saying this is where it ends, but this is definitely on the other side of that spectrum. We're going with the Western Stars album from 2019, I think it was, and we're going with Moonlight Motel. I don't know how many of you have heard this song, care to hear it. For me, this song lyrically and the story and what's written, this is easily a top 5 all-time song in the Springsteen catalog that I look at that way. The writing here, and it's the last song on the album, the writing on this song is just mind-blowing because, again, the way he writes and describes everything, I'm in there. I can hear it, I can see it, I can smell it. And here in the North Jersey area, I could even picture a place in the Poconos that fits this over in Pennsylvania. So the way he kind of brought us all into this song, at least for me, blows my mind. And if it's not a top 5, it's a top 3, just lyrically and how it comes together. So for sure, this song hits that top 20 mark for me of the songs that just kind of have shaped my appreciation for the Springsteen catalog over the years. You wouldn't think something so recent could have that much of an impact, but if you aren't familiar with the song or the album, you've got to give it a listen because it'll open your eyes, I think, to some things there. And I think when this came out was kind of when I started my own writing, as far as writing a book. And I started writing a story about this because I feel like this song itself is like the tail end of another story. There's still so much ahead of this that I want to know what happened. So I've started kind of writing my own little thing over the last few years. I got to get back on that, but this song kind of talks about 2 people who've kind of lost touch. They had their own little thing going on for a while at the motel. My opinion, anyway. Because we've all got our own. And over time, you just kind of you lose contact. You don't know where each other is. And this guy kind of goes back just to kind of revisit it. The motel is nothing what he thought it would be from last time he was there. It's boarded up. It's abandoned. And the way he takes you on this ride is amazing. And that's why I wish I knew what happened before this, to get him to this spot. So for that's why I put Moonlight Motel in this top 20 for me. All right. And now we're going to get into, I'm going to loop these next, put them all together. I can't think of a word right now. But group them. That was the word, group. These next 5 together because to me, these are the epics, not the anthems, but these are the epics that just kind of, with his writing, that just draws you in my opinion, to these songs. We're going with Backstreets, Incident on 57th Street, New York City Serenade, Racing in the Street, and Jungle Land. To me, I mean, this writing is just incredible. The way you kind of go on these rides with these stories. If I had to pick a favorite out of those, it's probably Backstreets because to me, that just kind of what I remember with my friends, and we still talk about occasionally to this day. On the back streets of our hometown, Clifton, New Jersey, at the time. So those all kind of make my list in terms of appreciating the Springsteen sound and the lyrics and how he does his stuff. No, they're not in any particular order. They're just kind of in that group, and I think those were certainly some great music, great lyrics, and that's again that drew me in to hear that writing because again you can kind of put yourself into these. Racing in the Street, not so much. I was never really into the cars, but I got it, and I still went on that ride. Incident in New York City Serenade, Jungle Land. I guess being so close to New York City, as he's talking about parts of the city and all those songs, and hearing certain things like the saxophone and different things going on, I felt like I had been there already. So, and the other thing I would say is for Incident on 57th Street, as great as that album version is, I think there is a live B side, and I don't know what it's the B side to, of the live version from 1980 at the Nassau Coliseum. He did a string of like three shows uh, leading up to a New Year's Eve show. So it was like the 28th, 29th, and the 31st of December back in 80. So I believe that was the time frame. But one of those shows, it wasn't, I don't think it was the final show. I think it was one of the other shows where they did Incident, and there's just this guitar solo. And again, you don't really associate Bruce with guitar for the most part, but there, and I believe it was him playing it, taking the solo out at the very end, which was just, again, if the lyrics didn't take you on the ride, the solo didn't. It wasn't a very complicated solo, just very melodic, and it just kind of a build up, and you went on this ride with him. So again, that was probably something there that brought me into this music. That was all part of those. So those five. That's why I wanted to kind of group them together. All the not the anthems, the epics um, for that. So kind of moving along. Again, we're kind of bouncing around. Again, these are the songs that just have drawn me in over time, and I'm just trying to put these all together. And I think the next one here would be Human Touch off this album, the song Human Touch. Why Human Touch? Well, because it was really the first time out of the gate without the E Street Band. He had his other band he put together. It was, Human Touch as well as Lucky Town, and it was something new, it was something different. It was kind of funny as I'm getting into Springsteen. You had Born in the USA, and then there was Tunnel of Love, which we'll get into actually next. It kind of went into this, which was different for the most part. So, and I dug it. I liked it. And a lot of people didn't because he fired the E Street Band. I like this. I thought this was a good album. I thought it was a great song. Human Touch, to me, is an underrated song. I like the guitar playing in it, especially the outro solo. But again, build up. You feel like you're there. This is one of those songs when I hear it, I remember seeing the video on MTV. Um, I'm in there. So I think that's why this song made my top 20 ish, called the top 20 ish. Uh, you know, songs that have kind of shaped my Springsteen appreciation for the catalog appreciation. Next one. Let's just find the picture here just so you kind of, for those, again, because some of you may not be familiar with a lot of this Springsteen stuff. And that's cool because hopefully I'm introducing you to some things here. But we'll, again, I'm a little bit older than maybe some of you. So that's why, here we go. This was the album here. Tunnel of Love. I think for me, I fit into this category. People were so into the Born in the USA album that when this came out, it was like, what's this? This was not the, fist pumping and all that other. That's another story for another time. Born in the USA and who got it right, who didn't get it right, and what was the meaning of it and misinterpretations. We're not talking about that here. This album was a complete left turn in terms of just um, musicianship. It was more stark. It was more, I would say, more on the acoustic side, even though it wasn't just an acoustic album. It was definitely had that premise to it. And for me, the song was one step up. And even back then, I liked it, but I wasn't like, oh, okay, this is all right. But that song stuck with me. And, over the years, I've just gotten a much more appreciation for that song and the meaning behind it and what's going on in that. And even with, playing it live with our band Lost in the Flood, myself, the guys, and even, Frank and I got together this past summer. This was part of, we did an acoustic duo type of thing. One Step Up was part of the set list because we like playing it. It sounds good. People dig it. And as you get older, you have an appreciation for what these lyrics mean a little bit differently now. So One Step Up will go into that just 20-ish list for me, basically. Next one. This is one of the ones for me that hit home. It just hit home. There's no other way to describe it. You definitely see yourself in some of these songs, as I mentioned, and this one I saw myself in at the time, and even now, still, two separate incidents where you see yourself as not the character, but something the character is talking about, and you don't want to become this statistic, basically. And this song was it for me as far as definitely Well, it's off the Devils and Dust album, right? And the song is Long Time Coming. And it's really just about a guy who, um, doesn't want to have the failures that his father have. Now, that's not saying I got to make something really clear. That's not the part of it I'm talking. The part of it I'm talking about is me as a father and getting older. That was the part that hit me, because you want to be there for your kids, and sometimes you just couldn't do it, especially when you're 600 miles away. So that was the part of it that hit home because I didn't want my daughter thinking that I'm the guy that wasn't around. And I'm still working on that. It's kind of tough at times, but we just keep the line of communication open. We go down and visit as much as we can, but you're not there every day. And even though I'm doing my best to make sure I'm there as a dad one way or the other, you don't know what she's thinking sometimes as a 14-year-old. So this song sticks with me and it will for a very long time for those reasons. So that's why this, again, it's not a happy song. It's not a great, this is a great song to put on the list, but there's a reason for it, and that's why. So that's why this song made it to my list here. Let's check off a few things here. And we're going to here's where the whole 20-ish side of it comes into play. I'm going to take another 5 songs. I'm taking them off the Tracks box set. I'm looping them in all together as one because that was when I really heard all of them at the same time. Tracks came out in 98. And somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but if someone can figure this out, I'm pretty sure that same day when Tracks was released, there was another release of a live album by another band that I like very, very much. So I got both of them at the same time. So if you can do your research, let me know if you know what band this is and what the album was. It was 1998. I want to say it was November. I could be wrong when this came out, when Tracks came out. I could be wrong. But there was another release, I think, the exact same day that, Monday. I think I got this at midnight, Monday going into Tuesday of the week, because that's when all the releases came out on Tuesdays. But that's I'm fairly certain another album came out that same day. It was a live release of another band that I like very, very much. If you follow this channel, you could probably figure it out. But let me know if I'm right with that because I would love to know. We're going with Frankie, Linda, Let Me Be the One, Loose Ends for sure, Back in Your Arms. So maybe there's only 4 of them on this. And it's funny because Back in Your Arms, I heard before the others because if I remember, again, correctly, the documentary Blood Brothers, I think it was on the Disney Channel. It premiered there first back in 95, 96, whatever it might have been, 95. Because he's working on the Greatest Hits album. And then this was one of those songs that was a newer song that kind of made the cut for that greatest, it wasn't even for the Greatest Hits record, but he held on to that for Tracks. But it was Back in Your Arms. I remember seeing on the Disney Channel thing. And I remember with the whole Greatest Hits things, band is back together, new album coming out, and you talk about a left turn, you got the Ghost of Tom Joad. So it wasn't a whole full E Street Band thing. You had a couple guys here and there, I think, helping out. Danny Federici was on Ghost of Tom Joad. I think Roy Bittan was on there as well. So, but Frankie, Linda, Loose Ends, for sure. Loose Ends in particular. And I didn't know this until I did some research and fact check me on this. Loose Ends was recorded for The River. It was an outtake for The River. July 18th, 79. July 18th, 99, the second show of the reunion tour in the U.S. side of it in New Jersey, Loose Ends was played that night. So 20 years later, after being recorded, it was played live. I have no idea. I mean, I would have to think somebody knew something and it was done intentionally, but didn't know that until recently recorded. And exactly 20 years later that night, it was played live. So that was pretty cool. That whole box set to me is very special, but those songs in particular, 98 was a time I had a sales route. I'm in the car. A lot of time in the car, going up and down through North Jersey. Had a 6-disc, careful what I say there, 6-disc changer in the back of my Honda Prelude, an 87 Honda Prelude. It was a Pioneer. So 6 discs in the back, I could change it, and 4 of those were the Greatest Hits box, or not the Greatest Hits, but the Tracks box set. So a lot of time spent listening to those tunes, and I would venture to say they got the most play. So Frankie, Linda, Let Me Be the One, and Loose Ends in particular, because they just, certain time in my life, listened to them a lot, and they were great tunes. So, and we'll kind of, again, we'll talk about Back in Your Arms, which, again, I believe it was on the box set as well, the track set, but I remember hearing it before that. So that's why I put it in there as well, to me, that was, the return of Bruce and E Street Band, and it was like, no, it's not. So, but we did get the Ghost of Tom Joad, and let's kind of, since we're talking about that, let's just kind of get into that one. The one song from the Ghost of Tom Joad album I would put in this list was Across the Border. Ghost of Tom Joad tour, I'm going to say December 18th, 95. Don't know if the date's exact. Beacon Theater, New York City. That was the first time I saw Springsteen. And even going into the show, I had a friend of mine saying, doesn't matter if it's Bruce or just a band with the band or by himself. It's amazing. You're going to have a great time. It's just being in the building with them. I'm like, oh, man. So I remember sitting there, lights came down, and there was just something happened, this energy was going on. So that's kind of, I guess where it all started for me, was right there. It took some time to get adjusted because, again, you're so used to, the songs that he's playing. And this was the album cover, if you're not familiar with it. These were the songs that he's playing that you knew a different way for years. I'm just trying to think. Spare Parts was part of that. Later in the set, I think was Promised Land, totally different. I think the show actually opened with the Ghost of Tom Joad, so that was okay. But it was all new arrangements, and it was so different, but still very enjoyable. It was later in the night when Across the Border, it might have been the last song that closed out the main set, or right around there. Across the Border closed out the set, or whenever it did. One of the most powerful solo acoustic things I'd ever seen in my life, and still to this day. So that's why this song makes that list, because it was part of my journey. The first night I'd seen Springsteen, it just hit home. Not that it hit home, but the musically and what he was doing, you got it. You understood what was going on there. So that's why I would put Across the Border in that mix right there. But let's go back to Tracks. Tracks came out 4 compact discs, and then there was 18 tracks. So it was brilliant marketing, because on the 18 tracks, I think there was 2 in particular that weren't on the box set: The Fever and The Promise. And for me, The Promise is part of this list as well, because, again, I didn't know much about The Promise. The Promise was something people had been clamoring about for years. Hey, Bruce, when are you releasing The Promise? People knew about it. I didn't know about it. And the reason people knew about it and I didn't know about it, because back then, it was just, you didn't have the internet. There was no one, you couldn't just go look up a song and listen to something. It just didn't work that way. So people had their collections of bootlegs and unreleased material. So you had to know somebody who knew somebody basically, to find some of these. And thankfully, I kind of had some people that I knew, and I eventually started getting some of these unofficial releases, just to listen to. And this is when you found out and realized Bruce just had a whole other side of things that were never released, and probably still things that were never released. I think Born in the USA in particular, that whole session, there were 80 songs he wrote or was considering for the album. So, but The Promise was something that went back further to I guess it was the Darkness sessions, honestly, but it never saw the light of day. See what I did there? Light of day. And people wanted to hear it. And I've heard both versions, obviously. The one with the band going back to 77, I don't think was as powerful as the piano version you hear on 18 tracks. But for 18 tracks, I hear it, and the description. And I remember the first time I heard it, there's a line in there, talking about Thunder Road, which a lot of people think is the part 2 of Thunder Road, this song. The line is, for the tires rushing by in the rain. And I remember listening to this for the first time, and I was driving in the rain. So it was just odd how some of these things work out there. But, that was what got me on that. And this, again, 18 tracks, that's not it. That was my gig a couple weeks ago, or last week, I should say. Hold, please. Good thing it wasn't anything worse than that. That would have been a problem. Where is it here? 18 tracks, right there. So same thing, it just had 18 tracks on it, right? So that's why I put this on this list here for sure. So let's kind of mark this one off. And then we're going to kind of bounce around to some things that just seem odd. But again, they've kind of shaped my appreciation for Springsteen. Let's go to the first album. Do you all know the name of the first album? I do. Greetings from Asbury Park. I do know it. Trust me, I just trip over my words sometimes. But Greetings from Asbury Park. First album. For me, the song on this album was Lost in the Flood. Again, epic. storytelling. Enjoyed it a lot. Understood what he was talking about as far as just the scenery and what he's writing about. But Lost in Flood was also the name of our Springsteen cover band. I mean, we started this 2004, 2005. I mean, we haven't broken up, but we just haven't played in a while. But we're still together. Um, that was the name of our band, and again, how did we come up with Lost in the Flood? Well, going over to rehearsals one night up in Westchester, and it was pouring. And I think the first three rehearsals were pouring rain. So hey, Flood, Lost in the Flood, Springsteen, it stuck. I don't know if people wanted to keep it all these years, but it stuck. Decent name. It was different, but we liked it a lot. So that was the one album, or one song from that album that did it for me. So again, and then the whole live in New York City version from the 2000, I should say 2000, was it July? No, I don't know what the date was, but the last show of the 10 shows at Madison Square Garden in 2000 for the reunion tour, and I guess the album was released in 2001, the live in New York City. So that's for that one, and then just kind of staying on that, I'm going with State Trooper from Nebraska. That's the next one for me. That's quite the turn, isn't it? Well, it is. Uh, State Trooper, again, was off the Nebraska album. And if you're not familiar with Nebraska, let's find it for you here. All right. This was a dark, not dark, but it was dark. Very, for all the gearheads out there, it was just Bruce on the guitar. Vocals, maybe a couple of other instruments here and there, kind of just mixed in, but done on a Tascam 4-track. That was it. I understand that. From my understanding, it was supposed to be a demo, the whole album. He had the cassette in his pocket. Forgot, God knows how long, trying to give it to people to listen to, and it came out as is. And some of those tunes, and one of those tunes on the outtakes was "Born in the USA," which I think that's the one thing he wish he could take back potentially, just from the way it was perceived. "Born in the USA" was not meant to be an anthem. It was meant to be an answer to the Vietnam War and how the guys and gals coming back were treated, basically. So when that became the anthem, it didn't really work for him. But on that album, State Trooper, again, from New York City, not from New York City, from New Jersey, but the way he describes everything on the turnpike, New Jersey Turnpike, right on the wet night, neath the refinery's glow. I've seen all that on the turnpike. So it was like I was there. I could see it, I could hear it, I could smell it. It was all right there. And of course, on the interstates and Parkway and all that here, the turnpike, you got the state troopers. So that's the local law enforcement that patrols those stretches of road, and they do it in, I guess, certain sections. So State Trooper was one of those songs, and we took that song with Lost in the Flood, the band, and we made it our own. We kind of gave it a rockin' version. 3 chords. We threw a guitar solo in there. We threw a saxophone solo in there, and it was cool. People dug it. So that's why it makes the list for that reason alone. It just kind of, not only memories with Bruce, but memories of the guys in the band, and we played that several times up in Connecticut. So the venue is no longer there. It was called Bobby Q's. We played on the rooftop, and those were some fun times for sure. So that was the one for me. So kind of keeping it moving here. The other one was My Beautiful Reward, live, which I believe was, when I heard it live, was 2005 on the Devils and Dust tour. And it was just powerful. Again, that's one of those songs you hear, it becomes part of your fabric because of just the way he's describing things, the way he's talking about it. I mean, to me, this song is about that person, and I put myself in that category. Just trying to find, I don't want to say purpose, but just trying to find whatever it is you're looking for. You're looking high and low, and it's just not there. You don't think you're good enough. And the ending could mean he's still trying, or the ending could mean, he's passed and there's no trying anymore. It is what it is. So some of those lyrics kind of spoke to me a lot on that. So that's why, and I saw Brendan Byrne Arena, Meadowlands Arena, whatever the name of it was at the time, but the Meadowlands. And I don't know if he opened with it, but it was certainly one of the first songs in that set, which kind of did it for me. So that's why I would put that one in here. None But the Brave. That's the next one we're going to go over here. None But the Brave. One of those songs that was, And I think it was finally released with the Bruce the Essential Collection. Let me see if I can find that here. I think it, just so you know what it looks like if you ever if you're out there trying to find um, and you're looking to buy a physical copy, which most people don't tend to do anymore. That's what it looked like. None But the Brave had been out there for a while. I think it was an outtake from '84. I remember hearing the '84 version a while back, which I loved, which was great. He re-recorded, I think, his vocals for this album, maybe guitar as well, but definitely the vocals was different. Not sure if it was better, different, but it was different. There was something about that version, that outtake, that just kind of hit me more, that I enjoyed more. Again, just kind of storytelling, but again, it wasn't that much of a difference where it knocked it out of my top 20, so to speak. So, but I would say None But the Brave, definitely kind of, for one of those, if you don't really know the catalog or are familiar with the how deep some of those outtakes go, that certainly would be one of them. All right. Um, I would say these next ones probably you could loop together, group together for sure. But let's go with Blood Brothers. Again, the Blood Brothers documentary on from '95, the Blood Brothers recording on the greatest hits, and then also I believe it was the last, again, that final show of the stretch of 10 shows at the Garden at the reunion tour. That final night they did Blood Brothers together. I believe, it was like kind of like the final encore. So, but again, you just kind of, that song, you think about your friends, maybe you haven't seen them in a while, but all right, so I was trying not to edit any of this. I wanted to go straight through, but the camera shut off for some reason. Anyway, we got to the end, basically. That's my 20-ish. So if you count each song, it's going to be more than 20. But I grouped together. I don't say I'm looping, but grouped. Frankie, Linda, Loose Ends, Back in Your Arms is kind of one, like an honorable mention type of thing. And then the other one should give you 20. But that's it. Figured I'd share that with you. If you're not into diving deep into these things, it probably was a boring video, but it is what it is. So hope you enjoyed it. It was fun. I'm glad I got a chance to talk about this because it's a trip down memory lane. So see you on the next video. Take care.